Welcome to Play to Win, where we play to win. I'm Dylan.
I'm Tyler.
And I'm Cameron. This week we're here to talk about the top 10 cards in the Brothers War for cEDH. But before we do, here are a couple of honorable mentions. Mishra, Tamer of Makfawa.
This card gives artifacts in your graveyard unearthed for 1 red and a black, and Bolas' Citadel is an artifact that can be entombed into your graveyard. That'd be pretty good.
Scholar of New Horizons.
Scholar of New Horizons works well with things like Mystic Remora and Devoted Druid, where you want to remove the counters, but not having haste and not doing anything until 1 full turn cycle after you play it isn't the greatest.
Continuous ramp in white is pretty cool, though.
Next one is Defabricate.
If we were going to see a Stifle effect that had another counterspell attached to it that was going to really make it, I think it would have been Tail's End and not this card, to be honest.
I probably would never play this card over Delay, and I don't really play Delay very much. Pretty much anything that you want to stifle, you could also just counter it instead with a counterspell, which is why Stifle effects are not so great all the time.
I don't like Stifle. Next one is Machine Over Matter.
Yeah, a lot of decks play 2 mana, bounce a permanent spell, non-land permanent creature, do some effect that synergizes well with your commander. If your commander's an artifact, maybe this one will go in your deck.
All right, so that's going to bring us into our top 10 officially here. So our first one is going to be Haywire Might. This is a 1 mana 1/1 artifact insect that says when it dies, you gain 2 life, or you can pay a green mana and sacrifice it to exile target non-creature artifact or non-creature enchantment.
This is kind of like Cathar Commando, which is a creature that does see play in cEDH. It's an insect, so if you're playing Grist, maybe this will be relevant, even though that's probably not really going to be a real thing. But it's close to effects that already see a little bit of play in cEDH.
Sometimes you want the body, but I think most of the time the upside of this over Nature's Claim is just going to be that it exiles the target instead of just destroying it.
Yeah, and this is like a removal for Mystic Remora that doesn't give them a card for Mystic Remora, so that's kind of nice.
I think that's a really important upside with that too.
If you're in a deck that wants to have artifacts and creatures and you want to be doing things like this is a good effect, I think.
I'm excited for this for Glissa in casual. All right, our next card is Lauren of the Third Path. So this is 2 and a white for a 2/1 legendary human artificer with vigilance. When it enters the battlefield, destroy up to 1 target artifact or enchantment, and you can tap it to have you and target opponent each draw a card.
This is kind of like Reclamation Sage, which doesn't see a ton of play, but sometimes if it has relevant synergies with the commander, it will see play. I think this is going to also be true with Lauren. In the right low color white deck, this is probably going to be helpful, especially because that second ability can stop Thassa's Oracle, which isn't going to come up that's a lot of stars have to line up, Summoning Sickness and yada yada. But the fact that this can do that on top of already being like a reasonable enough effect, I think that makes it pretty playable.
All right, our number 8 here is Recommission. This is 1 and a white for a sorcery. Return target artifact or creature card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. If a creature enters the battlefield this way, it enters with an additional +1/+1 counter on it.
So not the most impressive reanimation spell, but there are a couple of niche situations in which I think it's really appealing. Probably Heliod wants it, in part because it will bring Walking Ballista back with a counter on it.
Number 7 is Queen Kayla bin Krug. This is 1 a red and a white for a 2/3 legendary human noble. You can pay 4 mana and tap it to discard all of the cards in your hand, then draw that many cards. You may choose an artifact or creature with mana value 1, you discarded this way, then do the same with an artifact or creature with mana values 2 and 3. You return those cards to the battlefield and activate it as a sorcery. Oh my god, I need some water after that.
As a commander, I think this effect can be powerful if you build your deck correctly. If you're able to hit a 1, 2, and 3 drop every time you do this, that's going to be pretty good. The only issue is over time, you're actually not getting card advantage on this, or you're going to be doing it for less and less amount of cards each turn, especially if you're hitting your land drops, which you want to be doing. So eventually you're going to run out of steam. But hopefully if you're playing enough stacks pieces, that doesn't matter. You'll be able to drop enough hate that's going to stop your opponents from doing anything. Kind of competes with Winota in that Boros stacks range though, and I'm not sure that it's better than Winota, so.
Really looking forward to seeing Containment Construct in this deck.
All right, so our next card is our number 6. This is Myrel, Shield of Argiv. It's 3 and a white for a 3/4 legendary creature human soldier. During your turn, your opponents can't cast spells or activate abilities of artifacts, creatures, or enchantments. Sound familiar? It also says that when it attacks, you create X 1/1 colorless soldier artifact creature tokens, where X is the number of soldiers you control.
Yeah, so this is Grand Abolisher. Grand Abolisher does this same ability at 2 mana, and this is 4 mana, so which is a lot worse. Very, very, a lot worse. This also has the ability of when it attacks, you make some creatures. The unfortunate thing is it has summoning sickness, so you have to wait a whole turn for it to do that. I think this might see play in Winota, a deck that doesn't really care about that 4-mana ability and can cheat it in because it's a human and it really likes that effect on Grand Abolisher, so this kind of seems like a perfect fit for there. And then the things that you make are also going to trigger Winota later on, so that'll probably be relevant. But outside of that, I'm not really sure how great it is as a commander itself. I think there are probably better mono white commander options like Heliod or Owl, and in the 99 outside of something like Winota, like if you're not cheating this in, 4 mana is a lot for that effect, and there are like enough other things that do that for a lot less mana.
This may not be the best mono white commander for sure, but there's good news if you are really hard set on playing it, because there's a pretty reasonable amount of soldiers that are going to come down incidentally before you have 4 mana to spend on Myro that will give you the opportunity to start attacking and generating tokens a lot faster, because you're starting at 2 or 3 tokens per turn. Shortlist: Esper Sentinel, Thraben Inspector, Aegis of the Gods Bounty Agent, Thalia, Tithe Taker, Brutal Cathar, Militia Bugler, Ranger Captain, Recruiter of the Guard, Savior of Allenbeck, and the worst Thalia are all soldiers, so you're probably going to be playing some of those anyway if you're in mono white.
All right, so we're entering our top 5. These are our heaviest hitters here. So we're going to start with Brotherhood's End as our number 5. This is 1 and 2 red for a sorcery. You can choose one. It either deals 3 damage to each creature and each planeswalker, or you get to destroy all artifacts with mana value 3 or less.
Right, so for our format, Brotherhood's End basically says destroy all artifacts, because no one really plays artifacts that cost more than 4 mana unless you're winning the game right away with them, like Birthing Pot or something like that. So this basically either kills all artifacts, which is pretty good rate at 3 mana. I don't know if we have anything at that low of mana to destroy all artifacts, or at 3 damage to all creatures, which isn't an effect that we normally see in cEDH, but sometimes cards like Anger of the Gods could pop up.
Modal spells just tend to be really good, and even if you find yourself in a situation in one game where you don't want the artifacts effect, maybe you want the creatures effect, I think you'll often find yourself in a situation where one or the other is appealing enough that it earns a slot. And while it's not strictly better than things like Anger of the Gods in the traditional sense of that phrase, it is strictly better than Anger of the Gods.
You probably, the more apt comparison would be something like Toxic Deluge, if it's better than Toxic Deluge. Not sure that it is. Toxic being able to get rid of all creatures, but doesn't have the flexibility that this one does. Sometimes Toxic Deluge is a dead card, and this is rarely going to be dead. It's normally going to at least do something.
This archetype of card here, the 1 and 2 red 3 mana Wrath, has never been good enough to break into cEDH, and they keep pushing them more and more and more. So I'm excited to see what the next one is, and hopefully that will be.
I think never's a strong word there. Anger of the Gods is in some lists. It's not.
It's in some lists, but
it's fringe. It's fringe.
It's okay. It's okay. It'll get there one of these days. All right, our number 4 is Soul Partition. This is 1 and a white for an instant. You exile target non-land permanent. For as long as that card remains exiled, its owner may play it. But a spell cast by an opponent this way costs 2 more to cast.
Dylan, can I ask you something?
Yes.
How excited are you to see the look on someone's face when they realize that you have a Drannith Magistrate out and you just cast this targeting their...
Extremely excited.
Right.
Yeah, this is basically a bounce spell. You can kind of think of it like that. It returns it to their hand, sort of, exiles it, and then they can play it again. So it's a little bit better than a bounce spell because they have to pay 2 more mana for it. And if you have any of the things that white has a lot of, like Rule of Law or Drannith Magistrate, that can make it difficult for them.
I also like it if you're in like Tim the Jessica or something and you're trying to go off, but you have to remove a stacks piece. Like, I think that's a beautiful way to be able to do that, and I like this direction that white's going with interaction.
Just to dovetail with that, if you want to remove a stacks piece and you don't succeed in winning that turn, you're going to kind of be happy that it has the opportunity to come back and slow down your other opponents.
Yeah, and like 2 mana is not like too much, but it's also really impactful. So yeah, I think Soul Partition, that's actually one of my favorite cards that I'm super excited to try out for this set. But the next one is even cooler though. It's our number 3, our top 3, Sardian Avenger. This is 1 and a red for a creature Goblin Warrior. It's a 1/1 with First Strike and Trample. I love when they give the 1/1s trample. Like, you always know something else is coming then. Whenever Sardian Avenger attacks, it gets +X/+O until end of turn, where X is the number of artifacts your opponents control. When an artifact an opponent controls is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, Sardian Avenger deals 1 damage to that player.
I'm really excited about this one because my win rate against Renota decks is really low now, and now we're going to make it a nice round 0 because this is just so good.
At first, I wasn't too sure about this card, but then I kind of pictured what it's going to be like. Dockside is normally good because Dockside makes between like 4 and normally 6 treasure, sometimes much more than that.
Darkside also gets enchantments, of course, but this is still really good.
So if this gets +6/+0, this is attacking as a 7/1 for 2 mana, and it's a First Strike Trample. First Strike Trample works really well together. If you have a 7 power with only 1 toughness, doesn't matter if they block with a 4/4, the 4/4 is dying and they're taking 3 damage over. You obviously know how First Strike Trample works. Doesn't matter, but also not only is this basically like probably one of the better like Tarmogoyfs we've ever had in our format as just like a 2 mana big beater, which normally isn't good enough, but this also has the extra ability of kind of being like a stacks piece. If your opponent is trying to do any loops with artifacts, this doesn't let them do it. And not only that, it makes their dock sides kind of bad. If they want to sacrifice their treasures in response so your starting doesn't get bigger, they're still going to take damage for it.
The number of artifacts that your opponents have can also grow throughout the game. So even if it starts off attacking as like a 4/1, that's only going to get bigger as the game continues to go on.
Is this a Najeela card?
Meticulous Evacuation is our number 2 card here. This is 1 white mana for an enchantment that has an activated ability. You pay 2 and a white to return target permanent you control to its owner's hand. If it has Unearth, instead exile it, then return that card to its owner's hand. Activate this only during your turn. I can't believe I had to read that Unearth line. That was bullshit.
Combos with Dockside as do many things, but so far as I'm aware, there's nothing that is just a white card that comes with Dockside Extortionist. So if you're in Boros and you want to play this card with Dockside Extortionist, you can do that.
You do need your opponents to have 6 artifacts or enchantments to be able to get there, but that happens often enough.
It's great that we just have this as a Boros option now.
But if you run Skyclave Apparition...
Oh.
And our number 1 card. I hope you're not sick of talking about white cards because, boy, oh boy, do we have a heavy hitter for you. This is Calamity's Wake. This is 1 in a white for an instant. You exile all graveyards, and players can't cast non-creature spells this turn, and then exile Calamity's Wake.
So this is another silence. It's 2 mana instead of 1, but it does a little bit more. The exiling graveyards is obviously going to be really relevant. This is stopping Underworld Breach in 1,000 different ways. It's important to mention that it's players, so it's also you, so it doesn't exactly act as like a protective silence all the time, but in like creature strategies like a Heliod or anything where you're just going to play creatures to combo, this is going to be an awesome silence that can also really affect the table.
The 1 mana over silence is probably worth it just for the graveyard effects with how many things have to use their graveyard and the animate deads, all the other stuff that you want to stop. Sometimes you're casting this and you don't even care about the silence part and it's still fine.
I think it's excellent interaction, and depending on your deck, anywhere between excellent protection and meh protection.
So if you'll notice, basically that entire top 10 list was all Boros cards, all red and white cards besides Haywire Might, which was a barely green card. I think Wizards has heard the call that we want more white and red good cards in Commander because those were legitimately the best cards that we found.
And Winoto hasn't been able to catch a break.
So we skipped an honorable mention. I'm realizing.
Okay, let's go back.
All we have to do is just figure out something
Liberator.
for Liberator.
Oh, fuck.
Our last honorable mention is Liberator Urza's Battlethopter.
Shimmer Zur is a deck that plays Shimmer Mirror, which is another version of this effect, a 3-mana flash creature that gives other artifacts and colorless spells. You can cast them as though they had flash, which Shimmer Zur really wants to do, effectively giving Zur 100% more of that type of card. So now it has 2 versions, which is probably going to make it really good when it's trying to necro to find one of them.
So if you do the math, 100% of the time now you get it.
Yeah, that's right.
Before it was either 50%. You either got it or you didn't get it.
And now
there's 2 of them, so you'll always get it.
So now it's 100%, twice as many, right, Tyler? Confirm? That's how it works.
Yep.
No, it is.
That is how it works. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to support us directly, you can do so at Patreon like our $50 patrons.
Jason Perkins, Mansolo, Nicola Marakovic, Roberto Ruiz, Stephen Shalikti, That Green Guy, Plantain Jackson, Isaiah Berliski, Michael Lyon, George Allen, Pedro, Jukai, Byron Wang, C, Kawaja A. Hamid, Jacob Depp, CZ, Michael Ballou, Jan Wildfang, Adrian Grimm, Sleepy Jarvis, Thomas Bono, Swampy McGee, Jesus, Nocturnal Beaver, David Nelson, Jormax, Moxfield, and Baby Jeebus. One take, one breath.
Nice. That was dope.
Check out our bonfire store for things made of cloth.
If you want to pick up any of the cards that we mentioned today, you can do so at the TCG Player affiliate link down below.
Technically, I'm supposed to say that because we're going in this circle.
Nope.
He goes, nope.
Our Alter Sleeves affiliate link gets you 5% off your order, so check that out as well.
If you want to pick up any Dragon Shield product, do that at our affiliate link.
And PlatoandMTG.com has the new Gilded Drake tokens that look like Tyler, so make sure you go check them out too.
Thanks for watching.
See you next week.
Bye. Listen, I need a Springleaf Drum in my Kinnan deck, and they're doing these serialized artifacts now. So if you are the person who opens the Springleaf Drum, serialized foil, limited edition, whatever, number 69, call. I want it. Oh wait, I was supposed to say that with my fucking mouth.
Yeah, you wanted to. If you wanted to.
I literally just mouthed it like an idiot. I have no idea why I did that.
That's
I'm
good.
so
That's enough.
confused.